should do a senior-themed D&D podcast.
Where we all talk like we're geriatrics.
What?
I said we all talk like we're geriatrics.
I've never fought a geriatric. Is that some kind of hobgoblin?
No, you idiot. I said we talk like we're geriatric. God damn it.
What edition are we on?
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your weekly Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bornigal.
And I'm Will Melvin.
And we'll be hanging out with you for the next hour to talk about anything and everything in D&D related. This week is the Bard Ranger Multiclass, and then later on, Hags Part 3 from Volo's Guide to Monsters. So pull up a chair and stick around.
All right, so this week our multi-class is the Bard Ranger. Bard spins some songs and casts some spells. Ranger is the hunter in the forest type. Yeah, that's good. First thoughts on this combination, Kevin?
I kind of like it. We usually aren't too happy with Rangers and all that, but I think there's some cool, flavorful things you can do.
I think that was probably my hardest thing right out the gate, was thinking of a flavorful thing to do with the combination. So we'll definitely dive into that. But before, Will, any thoughts?
IDK, man. I don't really like either of these classes due to personal biases. But I don't. You got a full spellcaster, which Kevin insists bards are.
They absolutely are.
By the books, full spellcaster, yes.
They have the exact same spell slots as wizards.
Agree to disagree. Holy crap.
And like the second most known spells for ones that actually learn new spells, I'm pretty sure. I think they learn more than sorcerers.
Yeah, I think they also do have that. They really are a spell heavy class. And then Ranger is interesting because they really did kind of just tack on spells to a martial class.
Right.
So I don't know how well that's going to synergize a lot of the Rangers spells. There's not going to be a lot of overlap because the Ranger spells are essentially exclusive to the Ranger, like 9 times out of 10. So.
Right. There's a few gems in there, though, for the Ranger spellcasting. It's just overall pretty mediocre, especially compared to the Bard, who can get spells from other classes.
Right. They're magical secrets at level 10. 2 spells from any class.
And that happens earlier with the lore bard.
Yeah, if you're a lore bard, you could also get 2 at level 6.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that was generally my first thought, was the Ranger just doesn't seem like it's going to add too much from a mechanic standpoint. The Bard has a lot of ways to be versatile in how you run the class. They've got melee subclasses that make them pretty good at melee. They've got spell subclasses that make them really good spellcasters. Rangers just add in some flavor and a couple interesting mechanics, potentially, but nothing too great.
Yeah, I think the best bet is if playing a Ranger and you do a 3-level dip into Bard. I wouldn't want to do it the other way around. I don't think the Ranger is going to add anything to the Bard, except for one really special use case that we could get to. But so if you're a Ranger, and as we talked about previously, Rangers really fall off at higher levels.
Right.
You stop getting many worthwhile things. So if you're a Ranger and you dip into Bard just 3 levels, you get 6 known Bard spells. You'll have additional spell slots, 2 cantrips, Bardic Inspiration, Jack of all trades, Expertise, and the first feature of your college. So, like, if you're a lore bard, then you have Cutting Words.
Which is a fantastic use of your Bardic Inspiration. Yeah.
Right.
Cutting Words is the one that lets you, before you know the roll, you just decrease it by a D, or whatever your Bardic Inspiration die is.
Yeah, after you know the roll, before you know the result.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's
like
right.
on an enemy. Like an enemy's attack roll or ability check. Not saving throws, though. Or you could also do it on damage.
Not to immediately get off topic, but I'm going to anyways. How do you feel like that should be run from a DM side? Because most of the time you're not rolling things out in the open. It always feels really, I guess, kind of game stopping when you have a bard at the table, because every time you make a roll, like, do you tell them every single time? Do you start rolling out in the open specifically for this campaign? Or what? Or do you just have to roll in every time? Just say, like, you need to stop me before I tell you.
That's how we've done it. I've had 2 lore bards with Cutting Words and used it heavily. I barely ever used Bardic Inspiration then. And that's kind of how we did it. It was one with you as the DM, one with someone else as the DM. It just kind of worked out. You're, as the DM, you're kind of able to get a feel for, all right, they might want to Cutting Words this. And you kind of slow down. You roll. And it's like, all right, I rolled. I'm attacking Bob. I rolled a 17.
Oh no, Bob. Yeah, no, that's fair. And I guess it really might just come down more to saying, like, just changing how you phrase your attacks. Because a lot of times right now, I roll the die and I say, that hits. But it would be more like you roll the die and you say, that's an 18, and you wait for the other person to respond like, that hits, or I'm going to use my Bardic Inspiration, or I'm going to use Shield. That honestly might just be a good way to overall do it, is just say the amount of the roll afterwards.
So on like this is kind of a meta note, but bards are one of those classes where you really do need the player themselves to be taking a very active role in every combat. Because if you have the kind of player who waits for their turn and then, does whatever generic action they have queued up in their head, they're going to go to the grave with a enormous amount of resources because they're just like, oh yeah, I forgot that I can basically take these turns in the middle of things.
Right.
And that's why Kevin was always that obnoxious bard. To see the DM's face, it's like, oh, nope, I'm doing a thing.
I'll say
between counterspell and cutting words. And
frustrating days for a newbie DM. I'll say that. I think now I'd be a little bit less worried. Yeah. Oh man, that counterspell. Whew. Don't even want to get into that. So, all right, interesting combinations for the Ranger Bard. Did you come up with anything in particular, Kevin?
So, admittedly, this is not unique to the Ranger Bard. It will work with any class going into Ranger. We've missed it up until this point. Like I've known of this, I just didn't think of it or whatever.
I like things that we've missed.
Yeah. So if you're and it's using the Beastmaster Ranger, which
never mind. I don't like this. Take it back. I've got something that doesn't use Beastmaster. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So with the Beastmaster, when you the main thing, if I'm assuming everyone can infer from the name or is already aware, you get a beast companion that fights with you and stuff like that. It needs to be a beast. It needs to be challenge rating 1/4 or less, and it needs to be medium or smaller. Those are the 3 criteria on it. So you could get a medium beast and play a halfling or a gnome who is small, and you can mount your beast. So it's kind of a permanent way to get a mount. Which comes with various advantages. And then if you really want to take it further, it's actually in the basic rules, it's like the Pterodon or something like that. It's basically a small pterodactyl. It's a challenge rating 1/4 medium flying beast. Absolutely, there's no reason you cannot take that as your beast companion. And then you're a halfling or a gnome riding around on a pterodactyl. It takes 3 level dip to do that, I think.
There's part of me that wants to yell at you and say, you can't just be riding a dinosaur. But then there's the other part of me who remembers our episode on dinosaurs, and that sounds so cool. I mean, story-wise, it'd be a little weird to work in there. Like, I traveled to Dinosaur Land, and I tamed a pterodactyl. Yeah. I mean, I guess this is actually really important.
Pteranodon, I think is...
Pterodon, whatever.
Yeah.
Do they have to specifically train like a real animal, or are they like calling into the Fey Wilds and pulling forth a beast? Like, I don't remember the flavor.
It's a real animal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
It's just...
You could also... So I know we're not big on homebrew of classes, but we'll do with monsters and stuff like that. And so the existence of that Pterodon or Pteranodon, or I can't remember the exact name. It gives you, the stats are really generic. There's nothing about it that screams dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
It has a fly speed. It has a basic attack. It has a flyby ability where it doesn't get opportunity attacks for leaving range while flying. It kind of gives you the criteria to just reskin it as anything you want. It's a large owl. It's a big raven. Stuff like that. It's
a gnome flying around on a large owl sounds awesome.
Yeah.
But would that mount be able to fly too, like while you're on it?
I don't see why not. There's nothing that says it couldn't.
Yeah, I guess not.
In terms of mounting, it needs to be a size category.
I guess you would have to, this is getting really particular, but make sure that its strength is high enough and that your weight is low enough in order for it to like carry you. But
again, that's not anywhere in the mounting.
It's not
rules.
okay.
It's just
what about the encumbrance of your owl?
That's basically what I'm trying to make sure there's nothing here that really prevents you.
That's the one thing that comes to mind. Is not technically a mechanic, but you could over encumber your owl.
I don't know what the strength is.
Probably not super high.
Yeah.
Okay, Google. What's the strength of a giant owl?
Whatever. Just look up the beast. I'm gonna pull it up. Keep talking about other shit.
Okay. So yeah, you can be a tiny ranger mounted on an owl. So that makes Beastmaster a little bit less bad because you're not really relying on any of the beast parts because you're probably just using your action every time. But at the same time, the Beastmaster's whole thing is that you can use your beast for other stuff. That's like every single subclass ability is something that your beast can now do.
That's why in this situation, it's kind of this would be the 3-level dip. Because at level 3, you get your beast.
I thought we're talking about a 3-level dip into Bard and then going Beastmaster. Are you saying the other way?
This is, I think, what Kevin was talking about. Any class, if they want to be a gnome on a giant owl,
Go
that's
3
3 levels
Ranger.
of Ranger.
Okay.
And so I would think a bard in particular could benefit from that, especially more than like a paladin or something, because they could fly above, stay out of combat, things like that.
This sounds like a really funny, silly thing.
And then there's the argument. You guys aren't going to like this. So
Nope.
they have the flyby ability. The Pterodactyl doesn't provoke an opportunity attack when it flies out in an enemy's reach. Most flying monsters have that.
Okay.
Then there's argument. All right, so is the guy mounted on it also immune to opportunity attacks?
I think we ruled yes in just the other day's session.
When we were talking about horses moving away?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's the whole thing of opportunity attacks saying if you are moved by some other means, if you are not moving out of reach using your movement action or bonus action, it does not provoke an opportunity attack. Well, it's not yours.
Right.
It gets kind of iffy. I looked it up online to get opinions. I couldn't really find a consensus.
But at the same time,
I would say that comes down to the table.
I'm not too worried about it either.
Yeah.
I mean, are there many times that you think as a bard you're going to fly in and make an attack and get away really quick?
No, I'm talking beyond bard. So you could do this with a rogue.
True, but they have other ways
to
disengage and do whatever.
Yeah.
It's not that it's
Or
bad.
Barbarian, a monk, a fighter coming in with a greatsword on a pterodactyl, lopping their
No,
heads
they
off
can't
and
use a
flying
great sword
off.
though. If they're small enough to ride the
That's
owl,
true. That's
they
true.
can't use
All right,
large.
regardless. All right.
So
Long
now
sword, whatever.
that important part balanced this
Yeah.
entire thing. So he has to use a D10. Obviously, it's not overpowered.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably certain ways to get around it. But I mean, overall,
Yeah.
I don't think it's so powerful to just not provoke opportunity attacks. For a 3-level dip into a class, like that is what you are sacrificing to an extent. You know,
Right.
whatever that 3 levels in Rogue are, 3 levels in Fighter are, whatever. You're missing out on that just so you can not provoke opportunity attacks. If you're a fighter, most of the time you don't care because you're trying to be up in the shit anyways.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Kevin, what's the HP on your little pterodactyl monster?
I just had it up. Hold on.
Kevin.
I'm going to assume
13.
13. So that's another major
It's
risk
going
to
to
this
go
whole
up.
thing.
The Beastmaster's companion stuff increases. Your proficiency adds to it.
it's not much if I remember.
Their health is their default one are like 4 times your ranger level.
Right. So at most 12.
Okay, so it would be 13 then, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the strength is 12. What's the standard encumbrance? It's strength times 15.
Their strength is 12.
Yeah,
All right, that's
That's not
that's
bad.
probably fine.
yeah.
It's not like they're carrying a bunch of other stuff. It's a giant bird.
And then you have
Why
the
do you need
utility of
stuff?
flying. You now have this companion you can mount up and fly on at any point in time.
You know what-
It's sort of like a guaranteed way to get yourself a flying broom magic item.
What else is interesting is if you don't issue it a command like attack, dash, disengage, or help, it just takes the dodge action by default. So even if you are nearby, it's constantly dodging, and you're just using it for movement around the battlefield.
Yeah. Yeah, and its speed is 60 feet.
Wow,
So it make you mobile.
Ugh. That's really good.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like game breaking or anything.
No,
Like that.
no.
It's cool. It's fun. It's flavorful. It's a use for multi-classing in the ranger that could apply to anything.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're a gnome.
Or a halfling.
Or a halfling.
Actually, in this case, you want to be halfling because gnomes get +2 to intelligence, which is not good for this combination at all.
Kevin, that's a little min-maxy, don't you think?
Yeah, speaking of ability scores, it needs to be 13 dexterity, 13 wisdom, 13 charisma.
Oh, that's right. This one is
Yeah, but it's not that bad. We always go into like, oh man, we need 3 scores. That's so terrible. Like if you're doing point by, which is what we do, it's really not that bad. Just out of curiosity, I went through the exercise of doing it. And if you're a half elf, you get +2 charisma and then +1 to 2 other ability scores. So obviously choose dex and wisdom. And at level 1 with a standard point by, you could easily end up with 16 dexterity, 16 charisma, 14 13 wisdom, 14 constitution, then 8 in strength and intelligence. Like, that's fine. That's a perfectly acceptable stat array.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, a good race to do it with, of course.
Or you could also, like, halflings as well. You could essentially get to the same
Around that.
thing. I think you'd be
less.
one less somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, and you get the luck feat. Not feat, the ability, whatever, the racial ability.
I forgot about that.
Which is really good.
You want to explain that one to the kids at
I think
home?
you just re-roll ones.
Yep.
And that's it. They basically get a free advantage, the way I think about it. They get advantage if they roll a 1.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
re-rolling ones is great.
All right. So that can justify a 3-level dip, but you're saying in general you'd probably do a 3-level dip into Bard?
From the Ranger?
Yeah, from the Ranger?
Yeah, because other than if you're going for, or again, like a 1-level dip into Ranger is going to get you like favorite enemy and stuff like that. It's just if you have a flavor reason to do it, mechanically, you get very little for it.
Yeah.
If you have a character concept that you want to realize, you have a Bard that hates dragons. Do a 1-level dip into Ranger, favorite enemy dragons, favorite terrain, mountains, or whatever. And it's...
Yeah, I always, for whatever reason, when I think about Ranger, the first thing that always comes to mind is the favored terrain, but that's really not the best way to think about it. The favored enemy is where a lot of the flavor comes from, in my opinion, of them being the monster hunters or trackers, master trackers, whatever. The favored terrain always feels like a bit of a just something that they kind of give you as well, but I don't know. The Ranger class is so weird.
But it goes back to what we talked about before. If you're in an exploration heavy campaign, it's invaluable.
Right.
We don't do that often. I don't think a lot of people do. I think that's the pillar that's probably most neglected.
Well, it's because it's really, really difficult and time consuming to flesh out an entire world. When you give your players, hey, there's 4,000 square miles of open forest. What do? You kind of got to fill it in.
Right.
I head to the forest. Why? Because that's my favorite terrain. So, let's start there. See what trouble we can cause.
Oh, the swamp. Avoid the swamp. I'm not good in swamps. We stick to the forest.
But there's a lot of money in the swamp. No, avoid it. I kind of went, I'll say the other way on this, or really just not with a focus on a 3-level dip. The more I looked into it, the more I really kind of liked the Hunter subclass for Ranger. That's the other player's handbook subclass. So that besides the Beastmaster. And that really just gives, in my opinion, a lot of really good subclass features. Even at 3rd level, just Colossus Slayer is one that can really help with damage. So if you're going one of the more melee-focused bards, I feel like it just complements it pretty well. The Colossus Slayer is when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, the creature takes an extra 1d8 damage if it's below its hit point maximum. You can only do this extra damage once per turn. But I mean, how many times are you attacking something that already has its HP reduced from max? I'd say 95% of the attacks you make are going to fall into that category. And even just as you continue to level up, the subclass choices are all something that are pretty good. Some definitely outweigh others. Like at level 7, there's your defensive tactics. One of those is Steel Will. You have advantage on saving throws against being frightened. Not really great. But other ones like multi-attack defense. When a creature hits you with an attack, you gain +4 bonus to AC against all subsequent attacks made by that creature. So at that level, 7th level, most of what you're attacking or getting attacked by is going to have multi-attack. I mean, I know that Ranger is not the most fantastic class. We've said that before. But overall, those aren't bad abilities.
Right. Yeah, the Hunter subclass is pretty solid.
Yeah, so I mean, combined with something for Bard, like we're talking the Valor Bard or the College of Swords, both of those offer just really fun ways to play a melee-centric Bard.
Right.
And I feel like they just they mesh well. The Ranger actually adds something to that, and the only thing you need to bring from a role-playing standpoint is your reason to be one or the other, I guess. Which, if you focus on the monster part of it, it's pretty easy to get around. In some capacity, a monster hurt you in the past. And boom, now you have a really good reason to hunt that thing down and try and wipe it out. Throwing in a bard, I don't know. That's where it gets a little tough.
So there's this, I don't know, this image conjured in my head of the ranger being one of the classes that most epitomizes the idea of like a stoic kind of quiet type. It being a solo hunter who spends all their time with their like pet wolf or whatever.
Yeah.
They wouldn't exactly, it's not inclined to be the most social class.
Mm-hmm.
But you can kind of flip that on its head by, also I'm a bard and I entertain everybody at camp. It's like, I thought rangers were all weird, stuffy animal lovers. I'm like, no, man, I also have a lute.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm thinking of the lone wanderer playing his harmonica out in the desert, but I don't think that really just makes you a bard by default. Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, kind of, as you said, you're turning that stereotype on its head, basically, with the ranger. And that's fine. I mean, you can really ignore that all you want. But being a bard is more than just, hey, I like entertaining people. It's also the idea of supporting people and being just that, supportive in combat as well as spreading tales of great deeds and whatnot. So rangers normally live on the outskirts of town. There's a lot of things that don't really go well together.
And then there's the whole other aspect of bards where it's dealing with finding forgotten lore, discovering ancient tales, and gathering power through it. I mean, that's what the lore bard is
lore
all
bard
about.
that works well.
Yeah, and even just within the base kind of like fluff descriptions of the bard in the player handbook, it goes into that. Looking for ancient treasures, ancient secrets, things like that. That's also a big part of the bard.
So is this like
that fits
Tomb
really
Raider
well.
kind of character?
Yeah, that could work.
Tomb Raider with a lute.
Tomb Raider with a lute, yeah.
Yeah, it's just...
Or really solid poetry.
Yeah, that actually is a good way to think about it. I always have to try and separate that aspect for a bard. Like, they don't need to play an instrument. Of course, they get a proficiency in an instrument.
Right.
But that doesn't have to be their spellcasting focus. Actually, for the melee ones, College of Lore, College of Swords, they can use their weapon as their spellcasting focus, I
Valor,
believe.
but yeah.
Valor, just Valor?
No, not College of Lore. You say College of Lore.
I thought I said Swords. I might have messed up. But yeah, College of Swords and College of Valor both let you use your weapon as your...
Not Valor.
You said Valor.
No, I was letting you know the two melee-focused ones are Swords and
whatever.
Valor. Yeah, College of Swords, I think, would work really well with a Ranger. They have a lot of similar flavor. I feel like, then the ability to, use your martial weapon as a spellcasting focus is great. It saves you the Warcaster feat.
Yep.
Because if both your hands are full, or if you're just, I guess a bard would be likely to just have like a rapier or something and have a hand free to cast. But
right, you could have a shield if you want.
Yeah, you get additional fighting style, and then the blade flourishes, which are really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you attack, you choose to apply, where you like do extra damage or boost your AC against them, things like that.
Yeah.
College of Valor, I think it's really redundant. I would not recommend going College of Valor and multi-classing in a bard or ranger. I'm sorry, in a ranger. Just because at first level you get proficiencies in medium armor, shields, and martial weapons. Rangers give you all of that anyways.
College of Swords does that as well.
Right, but then it also gives you the
other part of it, being able to cast with your sword. Okay.
Right, and also a fighting style at third level and blade flourish at third level.
Right.
And then the other thing at third level you get for Valor is the combat inspiration, where you could use your bardic inspiration to add to your dice, your damage, or to a creature's AC. The creature's AC is nice, I'll give you that, but adding it to the damage, it's a D6. I feel like there's better uses for your bardic inspiration.
No, definitely. I'd say
adding 1d6 damage to 3 attacks per long rest.
Right, and compared to the College of Swords with the blade flourishes, where you're using your bardic inspiration die, all of those are really useful. I mean, you're kind of getting the some battle master aspects into a bard, which is just great. I mean, we've done bards a couple of times now, and I just really want to play a College of Swords bard now.
Right.
Because I like the blade flourishes a lot, and it scales really well. The only thing that sucks is going in that 6th level bard, you get your extra attack. 5th level ranger, you get your extra attack. So there's that overlap if you do it. I mean, that's fine. Maybe you only go up to 5 as a bard, or only up to 4 as a ranger. As we've talked Rangers don't really benefit too much from a dip unless you're doing that battle Beastmaster. There's some overlap there, though. I don't think it's a huge deal.
Right. In terms of standout ranger spells that you're only going to get as really a ranger, Hunter's Mark, Zephyr Strike, and Healing Spirit. I guess Druids could give you some of
What
those
levels
too.
are those?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay, that's fine.
But I think Zephyr Strike is a first level spell. So is Hunter's Mark. Healing, I think they're all first level spells, actually.
What was that third one? Healing what?
Healing Spirit?
That's a second level. Isn't that the one from Xanathars?
Yeah.
That you can cast like in combat and people can run through that area and get health.
Right, once per turn. You
I'm
get like
almost
a D6.
positive if that's first level, then I hate that spell even more. Because it's...
No, I think it's second level.
Because
Did you pull it up? Yeah, it's second level, yeah.
It's really strong out of... Well, one, it's a bonus action, which is extremely nice. I mean, it's better than Healing Word because it lasts multiple turns. You can move it as a bonus action as well. And you can use it out of combat for a minute to give a whole bunch of healing for a second level spell.
Did you either of you see the Treant Monk discussion on this?
No, actually.
No.
So the reality is, if you are in a situation with, like, let's say 1,000 wounded peasants, this particular spell could theoretically heal like 1,000 points of damage.
Right.
For a second level spell, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen. It's
No.
never going to happen at your table, and the game-breaking nature of it is really overstated.
Overstated to an extent, but I do think it's a little strong out of combat.
Yeah,
was the main thing.
People who use this as like a Congo line outside of combat to heal, that's not what it was meant for.
Just so that everybody's on the same page here, I don't think we've explained this spell yet. For Healing Spirit, you make a 5-foot space that you can see a healing space, and anytime you walk through it on the start of your turn or during your turn, you gain 1d6 healing. Now, one thing that I'm kind of looking at right now for it, it doesn't say that enemies couldn't use it. There's nothing that says a creature that you want to be healed gets healed. So
You could cause the spirit to restore 1d6 hit points.
you can. Okay,
Yeah.
there it is. All right, there's something.
No action required.
Right. So you can have everybody just run through it. So now in combat, as we've discussed, it's really not that powerful. You have a little area that you say, hey guys, if you need 1d6 healing, run through there. Okay, that's fine. It's not that much. But out of combat, you've got a minute straight where 4 creatures can run through this and get 1d6 of healing. So 4, 5, 6, however many party members you have, form a conga line and keep walking through it back and forth, and get 10d6 of healing for a second level spell. It's a lot, but I feel like it's as you said, in combat, not that bad. For 1,000 peasants that need healing, it's really good.
Will never happen.
No.
The only issue I have with it is it does break Prayer of Healing, but
Which one's Prayer of Healing?
the one where it takes 10 minutes. That super overpowered one, when we forget it's a 10-minute spell.
Right.
Whoa, everybody on the battlefield gets healed like 3d8. That's incredible for a second level spell. No, it takes 10 minutes, bud. Don't think you're going to get that one off when you're fighting the dragons.
What level is that?
I think that's second level.
Okay. Well, I mean, I won't say it breaks it. I'll say it's comparable. It's just the difference is it's one action instead of 10 minutes. But you can't. Well, no, you can't.
It's a huge difference.
And also a 5-foot square, not just 30 feet out or whatever it is on everybody who's there, and it just happens after 10 minutes.
All right, but that actually is a good point, Kevin. That the new spells they added, including Zephyr Strike and Healing Spirit, are definitely the most interesting ranger spells for classes that aren't rangers. Mm-hmm. So that is something you'd want to pick up.
Yeah, in Zephyr Strike, it lets you move without provoking an opportunity attack. And then at one point, you could add 30 feet. Well, the spell is active. It's kind of a weird one. You could add 30 feet to your movement for a turn. And if you attack somebody on that turn where you moved an additional 30 feet, you get the attack with advantage and it does additional force damage. A little weird.
Yeah, so before the spell ends, you can give yourself advantage on one weapon attack roll. This attack does an extra 1d6 or 1d8 force damage. Hit or miss, your walking speed increases by 30 feet. Okay. And it doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. And it's a bonus action. It is concentration, but you're probably not going to be holding that for too long. That does get in the way of a lot of good bard spells, though, because bards are almost always going to be concentrating on something. So that's one big thing is as you get further in levels, concentrating on a first level spell can feel kind of wasted.
Right.
Because you can always concentrate on a third level spell that's doing 3d8 per turn or whatever. But, if it's like just you need to get out of where you're at, boom, you don't provoke opportunity attacks and do some extra damage with advantage. That's just good. That's real good.
I think the Monster Slayer subclass of Ranger meshes really well with Bard, especially Lore Bard. The Monster Slayer's whole thing is the intelligently fight monsters. They're kind of like a Van Helsing
okay.
type person. And then if you mesh it with the Lore Bard, and you have the Bard that's looking for all the sorts of delves into things and looks for magical secrets and ancient lore and legend and stuff like that, utilizing that to better hunt monsters. And then if you want to kind of fold in the minstrel type spreading stories thing, they go to learn as many of these epic tales of heroes slaying monsters and foul beasts as they can to learn tactics and what's worked in the past. Maybe even seek these people out to learn from them and stuff like that.
Ooh, that's good. I like that a lot. Their main goal is finding legendary fighters who've slain Annis Hags and other monsters we've done as Monster of the Week.
Can that be
I think it's
like
only been
favorite
Hags.
enemy?
The favorite enemy.
The favorite enemy is anything we've covered on the Monster of the Week.
No, that'd be
No?
really powerful.
Yeah.
We've had some ones that would be pretty good to have the favorite enemy against.
Think of the versatility, though.
That's what I'm always looking for. Cool. So, any other subclasses that really mesh particularly well? Say, I didn't love the normal ones that we've gone to for Ranger. Gloomstalker is the one. Yeah, Gloomstalker doesn't really seem to mesh extremely well, especially from a lore standpoint. Just because Gloomstalkers are the opposite of bards, like Will was saying earlier, how Rangers are really to themselves. This is that to an extreme where they're like, I'm from the Underdark and I live in alleyways and I don't talk to people. So you're not going to just also say, and then I have a guitar and I spread joy to all of the people around me as a caveat to that.
Yeah, not a great combination.
No.
Horizon Walker, a little bit of the same. They kind of the new subclasses they added were not gonna lie, kind of weirdos.
Yeah, I mean they really did. But I think that differentiated the Rangers a lot better than the original Player's Handbook subclasses.
Oh yeah, I like them, but they don't really mesh well with Bard.
No, they do not.
No. Except for monsters.
Except for monsters.
Yeah.
Right. Which is just like a different flavored hunter. I mean, they sound a lot alike, in my opinion. Monster Slayer and Hunter.
It's Hunter is very specifically Battle Master-esque because you got those choices and stuff like that.
Right.
So you kind of build your own Hunter. Monster Slayer is a very linear path and more specific, more general than Hunter, I think.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it also seems, I get the impression Hunter is more focused on being adept at fighting martial enemies, where Monster Slayer is more magical enemies, which kind of fits more with those, terrible hunting monsters, vampires, and stuff like that. A lot of their traits are, and they could find out their resistances and weaknesses, and if they have regeneration and something special happen when you hit them. And then they could essentially, they kind of have a built-in counterspell if they have their prey marked and things like that.
Which one is that? The 11th level one, the Magic User's Nemesis?
I think, yeah. And then they also have one where instead of, if they're within weapon attack range, if they have to make a saving throw, they could attack the monster instead, and if they hit, they just succeed on their saving throw.
Yeah, that's
really
really
cool.
good.
Yeah.
So it takes till 11th level to get it, but... Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's
7th? Yes.
Supernatural Defense. Yeah. No, that's not that. Slayer's Counter, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's a
sounds right.
15th level ability.
Yeah, I'm just.
It's
we're
good.
just talking in general.
No,
yeah.
you're fine. I like it, and I think you got to use it
Yeah.
actually a good amount in one of our campaigns when you were playing a Monster Slayer high level.
Right.
It's pretty good for a high level one, and my only issue is that it forces you to be up close to it because you have to be within melee range, I believe.
I think it's just weapon attack range. If you're in range, to
Make one weapon attack. You're
yeah,
correct.
so you can do it with a longbow.
Yeah, no, that's really
Yeah.
nice then.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in terms of the difference, it's the hunter is going to be going out and they're going to slay goblins and kobolds and gnolls and giants and possibly all the way up to dragons and stuff like that. The kind of classic, almost more low fantasy stuff. And then the monster slayer is going to be going after vampires and mummy lords and aboliths
Lithids and
yeah,
things of that nature.
crap like that. The more weird stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
If you remember, this subclass was actually first put out in the UA associated with Curse of Strahd.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the
That
perfect.
makes-
He's hunting vampires, and
Yeah.
he's got.
It's
toolkit
clearly
for
based
hunting
off of Van
vampires.
Helsing. It's based off of learning lore and then fighting intelligently, not just brute forcing your way through.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good one. So if Rangers didn't just scale so poorly,
Yeah,
I'd
no,
love it more.
that's a great example of you go up to 15th level if you want some fun spells from your bard. That's a good bard dip.
Yeah.
after 15th level,
Mm-hmm.
you're just like,
Yeah, the 3-level dip into Bard.
Well, not even
lore.
after, but just
It actually-
realizing your limits.
realizing your limits, the bitterness bounce, as
Bitterness
you've called it
bounce.
before.
Every time.
And I will say this actually this is a class that could make sense to later multi-class out of at higher levels, just because of like how we said before, Rangers are usually secluded and to themselves, but after 15 levels, they're most likely traveling with a party and maybe they've lost people along the way and all of these things that could potentially make them want to be more support heavy like a bard would be. It's not
Sure,
a perfect
yeah.
combination, but I think it's a class that can get some character growth out of their brooding mentality.
Yeah, that's a really fair point where the whole thing about, the Rangers are kind of loners and the Gloomstalker. Well, if you're level 15, you've probably been with the party that entire time.
So here's a question. Can you solo level in D&D? Is it possible?
Yeah, it's possible. Why wouldn't it be possible?
What do you mean by that?
It's always in a group.
Of
Because
course,
it's a group game.
yeah.
It's a-
Because single player campaigns just aren't that fun, especially when it's DM against PC and it's just the one person. The
Yeah,
DM
that's a little
playing for
bit
themselves. But no, I mean, you can have it as a backstory thing if you want to start at level 15. But even then, I would have a really hard time not accepting a PC's backstory, but just, it isn't right. It's not in the spirit of D&D to come and say, I'm level 15 and I've lived in the forest by myself tracking things and I do everything alone. It's like, well, why are you working in a party now? Well, actually, no, that could be pretty good. I take that back immediately. Immediately. It might be against the spirit, but how many times do you start a high level campaign? Not often enough.
We used to, but I don't know. I think we got burned out by that.
I don't think we got burned out. I think we've been in a campaign for almost a year now.
That snake campaign was really exhausting, and I was so sick of being level 15. I don't know. I didn't think that was going to happen.
we got to 17. Yeah.
We
I was
did.
just so sick. I'm like, I wish I was level 3 right now. And
I'm going to say that has less to do with the level and more to do with me just not doing a great job of finding interesting challenges for high level parties.
yeah,
I was still treating it like it was low level stuff instead of really ramping up the difficulty and making it feel like you guys were taking out some crazy difficult threats. So I'm gonna throw that one back on me and say high level campaigns don't suck. I suck.
It gets difficult, though. It really gets hard
Yeah.
to balance. The challenge rating rules and the experience points, thresholds of easy, medium, difficult, deadly, stuff like that. They get really out of whack at higher levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just that was my first experience with high level combat. So
There was a lot of, hey, here's 15 varying types of Yuntai. Fight. A lot of that.
Which sucks because that is so flippin' slow.
is slow,
yeah.
and Yuntai really do hurt you bad. But that's a whole
Not when
different
we're level
story.
15.
No, they were still
Just
pretty.
nuke them.
Yeah, whatever.
Just nuke them.
There was more stuff that could have been done, definitely. But this isn't a retro conversation on that campaign, so talk about that another time. Anything else on the Bard Ranger?
I got nothing.
Will?
It's all right.
It's all right.
I'll say it's a little dull. I mean,
But you don't like a Bard or Rangers.
yeah, I don't like either.
If somebody likes both, this is probably like going to be really exciting for them. So what do you have to say for our fans who really like Bards and Rangers?
Remember, we don't alienate fans here, Will.
Oh yeah,
Say something nice, Will.
there are plenty of other podcasts for you. No, I mean if this is your bag, if you want Bard spells and Ranger spells, I'll never stop you. I won't come to your house and tell you you're not allowed to do that. It's a little dull to me, and you could be playing a Warlock.
You've really shown a lot of growth since we started doing these.
I feel it, yeah.
All right. Ready to move on to our monster of the week?
Yep.
All right. Before we do that, I will go ahead and do our usual spiel. If you are not yet, feel free to follow us on Twitter. That is at monsters_multi, as well as subscribe to us on whatever way you get your podcast. That's Google Play Music, iTunes. Leave a review wherever you can. Nice. On to our monster of the week.
So for this week's monster, we're returning to the Hags for the third time. So far, we've covered the 3 Hags in the Monster Manual, and then went over the Burr Hag in Volo's Guide to Monsters, and a little bit of their chapter, and we're going to wrap it up here with the Annis Hag from Volo's Guide to Monsters, and the rest of the special stuff in their dedicated chapter, which is definitely worth a read if you have access to Volo's Guide to Monster. So the Annis Hag is a really interesting take on the Hag. Hags, they're the classic witches. You're probably familiar with it, to a decent extent with them. The Annis Hag is the melee-focused one. It's a weird fit, but they managed to make it work. Its picture is hideous. It's how you would picture if you said, all right, we have this like evil witch hag, but she's really beefy and strong and just beats the crap out of people. And what you're picturing in your head is the Annis Hag. It really scary and just melee combat, real light on spells. Flavor-wise, loves just kind of one of the most terrible ones. I think we said this about every single hag. When we get to the hags, oh, this hag is really the most terrible. So they're all just terrible. This one's favorite prey is children.
Which is also other hags.
Yeah.
But its way of going about it is what's interesting.
Yeah, it does a couple things. A lot of it just hunt children. It says it just loves to hunt children for their supple leather. And I know this is getting really terrible. This is literally in Volo's Guide to Monsters. We're not being edgy and making this up. They like to skin them and decorate their layers and make clothes out of children. It's terrible.
I actually missed that part. That is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. Or
What do you use your child's skin for, Jared? You've just been throwing it away.
Oh boy.
Good start.
Yeah. Or if they're feeling even more cruel, they'll corrupt children. They could shapeshift themselves into just like a kind-looking old lady. Meet a child who's playing out alone. Give them a little token, which will allow them to communicate telepathically. And slowly over the year or whatever, corrupt them. Talk them into doing some bad things. Just sneaking out or eating some extra food that they shouldn't. Escalating to pushing people down stairs and really terrible things. And then put in this town in this terrible position of what do we do with this kid? Do we exile this kid? Do we punish him? What do we do? They're scary.
Yeah, and I really love that idea of the iron token. It's just something, again, it's an iron tooth or a nail, whatever it is. They just give it to a child in some trusting manner, like, oh, if you ever need to talk to Granny, just speak to this rusty nail, and I'll always be there for you. And it's just great. I mean, the corrupting children aspect is extra dark for D&D. Well, not for D&D, but it can be an extra dark thing to add into your D&D game. As for the actual stat block, I don't think we're seeing anything that's extremely impressive or out of the normal range of hags. Well, I won't say nothing that's extremely impressive, just nothing that's extremely interesting besides maybe their crushing hug, which is a lot of damage. Melee weapon attack, +8 to hit, 96 +5 bludgeoning damage, and the target is immediately grappled. There's no save to that to start. It's just they're grappled. And then until the grapple ends, at the start of each of the turns of the hag's turns, it does another 96 +5 bludgeoning damage. So in a scenario where there's just the Annis hag, this isn't as terrifying, definitely, because, your main thing is going to be, okay, the Annis hag is crushing somebody. We need to stop that at all costs.
Right.
But the Annis hag is one of the main hags that will gather minions. And it does specify that. So this is a great time to, even though this is a challenge rating 6, throw in some other big baddies, some golems and whatever terrifying things.
Yeah, within the flavor, there's a subsection Tribe Mother. She'll rule over other strong entities through brute strength and insults and manipulation. So, like, she'll have a clan of ogres or trolls and stuff like that.
Ruling them through brute strength, verbal abuse, and superstition.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So, and that flavors super well. And one thing that I was kind of trying to think of is a way that we could give this iron token to a player character. I know this specifics of it talk about giving it to a child and all that stuff, but this could be a good way to breed some malice between player characters. If you don't have them know why they've got this iron token and start, offering them certain things if they do whatever.
Right.
You can really kind of toy with your characters. The only issue with that is it needs to be within 10 miles. So this isn't something that you're going to do for, 30 sessions that you're just planning on and they finally reveal that it's an Annis hag. But for like a quick thing, they visit a village, meet an old woman. The old woman gives them a little token, find out they can talk to her, whatever. Like, that could be a really fun couple session thing.
I kind of wonder, as far as player agency, just how compelling a walkie-talkie to grandma is.
I wonder that too.
As a child, you may be more inclined to listen to it, but as like a full-grown adventure, you're like, this is just a walkie-talkie to an old lady. I really don't know that.
Right. So I think what would make that interesting is finding a way to have them intrigued by it and, interested in the grandma type. Maybe it's just, I've seen players get enthralled with the dumbest of stuff. So to be completely honest, giving them a walkie-talkie to grandma might be the coolest thing to them. Now, you're right, you can't remove all agency and have them start doing bad things, but maybe you have the grandmother ask for things that the player thinks is good. And now they start going around and poisoning the well when they think they're putting in fluoride.
So poisoning the well.
Yeah.
Wake up, sheeple.
All right. It's nope. But actually, like having them go around do things that are bad, but they don't know that it's bad. I think could be a fun way to play that.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge with the hags is trying to create your multi-generational evil plot in a way that is simple to get across to players.
Right, and integrates players, because a lot of times these hags are just posted up outside of towns and 30, 40, 50 years go by and they just torment this town whenever they feel like it. The towns slowly break down into madness and you're just going to have players show up and not, be disturbed by that or somehow just not notice it. So there's a lot of potential issues that could come up with it.
It just goes back to it's playing a enemy that is more manipulative and more intelligent than any person's going to be.
Right.
They're basically, from a longevity standpoint, they're basically immortal. They could be killed, but they're not going to just die of old age. Mm-hmm. So their patience and their scope of time and perspective on things is completely alien to any of us. It's really hard to put yourself in those shoes.
Right. Right,
So,
especially when
yeah.
you're trying to get the message across in a couple of sessions.
Right. Yeah. To your players. So I could absolutely see the Annis Hag giving a PC an adventure, a powerful adventure, an iron token, and just subtly manipulating or suggest or offer assistance and help in a way where long term, a generation from now, the ramifications of your actions have these terrible effects down the line. And I can see a hag figuring all that out.
Right.
How is that going to work in a D&D adventure?
Just next campaigns.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's the next campaign syndrome with these immortal, godlike creatures in their own way.
Right.
Right.
500 years down the line, this ranger took a token, and because of that, these 50 things happened, and now all of your children are cursed.
Wait, my character had kids? Yes, after the campaign. I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know. Yeah. New campaign, guys. Come on. Heads in the game.
Yeah, so I mean, on a larger scale, it'll definitely be difficult. Maybe you don't need to go that far. Maybe you just have the Annis Hag show up as the friendly grandmother, ask them for assistance in some way. The PCs think that they did a good deed, and it might be a throwaway thing that you bring up much later on. Like at the first level we're talking about, they do something where it's like, oh, could you please help grandma get a cup of sugar, whatever. They do something for this hag, and then 10 levels later they have terrible things start happening to them. They go and investigate and find out that there's reasons behind all of it. It's
The cup of sugar was drugs, and they're unwitting drug mules.
right. And now people are coming after them because they were drug mules.
Oh, man. I hated that time the party got ambushed by the cartels for accidentally delivering heroin to a witch. You could actually flavor it, though. You could have like a hobgoblin kind of paramilitary organization associated with some kind of gang that sells fantasy drugs if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cup of sugar, if it's actual sugar, that's
Going to be tough.
that's going to be tough.
Yes. No, of course. Unless that
She
was...
uses it to make sweets, which she will give to very small children to hook them on sugar. So they will forever fight with their sweet tooth and grow up with diabetes. And
Oof, we're tackling two very controversial topics: big fluoride and big sugar. And it all goes back to the NAGPA.
because the NAGPA put the hags in place.
That's actually, isn't the flavor of the NAGPA? He's usually friends with hags.
Yeah, that's not a problem. We can put the NAGPA in anything. Now.
yeah.
It's not a worry. But no, I think that'd be a interesting way to do it. It's just something that the PCs did in their past, and it doesn't have to be recent. Could just come back to bite them. And setting up that scenario, I won't say is really difficult, but it would be very satisfying if 10 levels later you had the PCs have one very minor thing come back and bite them that obviously isn't going to just kill them outright, but now creates a problem for them. They have to go investigate. They have to go find the Annis Hag and uncover all these things and kind of just work backwards through the plan that you have happen that didn't take any actions from them besides the initial domino push.
right.
I think the probably easier and more frequent incident is going to be when your players are coming in at the end of like a 150-year-old plot or something like that.
Yeah.
I always have that weird thing where I'm against. It's like, no, your players aren't that important. But everybody likes to be important in this game.
Right.
So yeah, you just kind of stumble upon their 150-year-old plot. You find some of the details and you stop it.
I mean, that works too. There's nothing wrong with that one.
Right.
And that requires a lot less of your players having to pay attention to things they may or may not have done.
Well, the point is you don't want them to pay attention to it. You want them to forget about it and then say, hey, remember when you delivered not heroin? It was heroin.
And your players say no, and you're like, damn it. Well, you did.
Why doesn't anyone write these things down? I put a lot of work into this.
And then there is the issue with, of course, the player agency where you'll put together this intricate, detailed plan of the hags to enact and then set it onto the characters and they do something completely different with it. But to handle it, it goes back to what we talked about the NAGPA. It's essentially you cheat as the DM.
Right.
You kind of make it so whatever they did, you make it so that worked into the hag's favor, and you change the little things behind the scene.
Exactly.
Ha! I knew you did that. No, you didn't. Well, you can't prove that.
Basically, yeah. I mean, You didn't know that I did that. Yes, I did. Why? Because, I don't know, I have a cat that's been following you around. You didn't notice the cat the entire time? Sorry, it had a sneak of plus 30 and your passive perception's only 20. It doesn't matter. That's the time where it's not a bad thing to...
Just dunk on your players.
It's not a bad thing because it is adding to the fun. It's not making their lives awful or putting them in situations they can't get out of. It's just a new interesting scenario.
Yeah, that's the rule of thumb. If it's to make it an interesting and intriguing campaign, that's great. If it's just like slam them with a battle they can't beat, that's like not fun. But if you're adding to the story, players often want to be part of the story that's being crafted, and they don't really care whether they're crafting the story themselves.
Right. Yeah. I'll definitely say that.
That one depends on the player. Some in the group. I know we've always played. We're usually okay to kind of go along with the DM's story, and we have agency and choices and impact it, but there's still the DM sort of orchestrating the story. There are groups where they would not like that. They would be mad about that. They would want full sandbox. It is the players making the story with the DM.
Yeah, that's an interesting style of play to me. Where the DM just like sits down for a session. What do you do?
Yeah.
Go
and
from
we've
there.
talked about that a few times on here where it's completely sandbox. Here's this world I made. And look, this is kind of what's going on. Here's this point. Let's talk about it. What looks interesting. Oh, yeah, you can make a character like this. And I'll do this. And
It's still at the end of the day up to the DM to create some turmoil, because if you create a world that is just perfectly fine, then the players are going to get bored really quickly. Like, oh, you are in the woods and there's squirrels frolicking and a little centaur roams by and nothing bad happens.
quick roll to appreciate the squirrels.
Yeah.
7. Shit, I don't appreciate the squirrels.
Ooh, banished.
I attack. No, you don't. This is a very peaceful land. That is a serious crime.
You can't just go around killing squirrels. This is a happy town. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, even if you have a fully open sandbox world, the DM still needs to say, and over here in this area that you guys haven't explored yet, there's a hag who's crafting this 150-year-long plan that when you guys show up is going to come to fruition.
Yeah. You need it's the staple of any storytelling. You always hear if you take a writing class or read anything about good storytelling, it always starts with there needs to be drama.
Right.
It could be internal drama, it could be external drama, it could be nation drama. It doesn't matter. There needs to be drama.
Ooh, that'd be a really, really great D&D campaign where there's just inter-party conflict where, they just have, it's like the real world, but D&D. But when I say the real world, like,
show,
yes, the show.
Why have mechanics when you can just force all your friends to sit down at a table
And make
just have
up issues.
Interpersonal conflict.
Okay, I guess that wouldn't be very fun, I guess. You guys aren't invited to that campaign.
Your party is the problem in the world. The world has achieved complete peace and nirvana across all of the land, but these 4 assholes just can't get along.
That'd be a good way to probably punish murder hobos, or just like make an interesting campaign for murder hobos, because they'd get into a village and it's like, I kill the guards. It's like, why do you do that? Everything's fine here. And they're like, I don't know, I'm crazy. And then boom, now there's conflict. They created the conflict.
Chaotic neutral.
But I guess then ultimately just going back to an Evo campaign.
Right, it really would. It would just be an evil campaign.
We need to run more evil campaigns.
We've never run an Evo campaign.
No, there have been a few times that I was allowed to slip in with an evil character, but
I ran it is perfectly okay to be evil campaign. My pirate one, where I expected everybody to do things that were underhanded and kind of get in more trouble than normal. But it wasn't like they were playing it smart. I just wanted to introduce people into the game and let them be murder hobos.
And then like we've played evil characters and
Right.
non-evil campaigns, but you make it work. It's
Its own thing. Does the Annis Hag have any interesting layer stuff?
not really.
No, not compared to like the Burr Hag. That was some cool stuff.
She can make like a
fog cloud.
Yeah, fog cloud.
That's it. Yeah. So within the lore chapter in Volo's Guide to Monsters for Hags, it goes into layer actions for the more powerful ones, the grannies and aunties. The Annis Hag creates a thick cloud of caustic black smoke, fills a 24 radius sphere. Cloud lasts until initial count 20 on the next round. Creatures and objects behind the smoke are heavily obscured. A creature that enters the cloud for the first time on a turn or starts its turn there takes 3d6 acid damage.
Okay. I mean, it's good.
Ooh, here's one. This is a regional effect, but gravel stones on safe-looking paths, roads, or trails occasionally become sharp for 100-foot intervals. Walking on these areas is like walking on caltrops.
That's cool.
That one is good. I
And
don't
that's
remember.
just a regional effect. So
Right.
you can screw with your players before they even get to the dungeon.
They're just walking into the village and they're like, why are these rocks so sharp? And then they ask people in the village and they're like, I don't even know anymore. It's just a
like,
thing.
It changes every day. It's just we can't keep track of it. It's don't move here. Just move on.
Guys, why are you here? Why are you still here? It might get better. That was I don't know. That's probably my least favorite thing in the flavor chapter, was describing how the hag will spend like a century next to a village doing quote unquote good things for these people, but they're really bad things. And they eventually get this like weird Stockholm syndrome. It's like, but the hag said she'd fix it eventually. It's like, I don't think she's going to make things better. It's been 150 years, guy. Move. But yeah, there is a section where it's like they will interfere with the player if they go and say, you know what? This horrible, miserable, like sphere of a mile around this hag needs to stop. We're going to go beat her up. And the villagers are like, no, you can't do that.
I like that part.
I'll win the lottery eventually. It's like, that's really unhealthy attitude, villagers.
Well, the things that they did get from it, those small benefits that they're paying for on a very frequent basis, they're afraid of losing those again. Like they had somebody get brought back to life and that person is extremely violent now after getting brought back to life. They still don't want that person to die, and they feel like if the hag dies, then something bad might happen and they lose their ability to fix their problems with ease. Fixed.
So yeah, this is more or less me admitting like I do go into a lot of things with biases and mentalities. And as a character, I can see getting very upset with his entire village.
I could see that. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh my god. Your characters would hate it. What are you doing? Just move.
Move. We're gonna go kill her. What is the problem here?
That'd be I could see that ending in you burning down the village to make sure that everybody gets out, which has definitely happened in one of our campaigns before.
Oh no. Yeah, the time we
Different
firebombed
reasons,
the
yes, totally
entire
different.
city to get them to run.
It was perfectly reasonable. That was a really, really good time.
I don't know if when you get to that scale of things, I don't know if reasonable ever comes into it anymore, but
was-
there was a logic to it.
Yes, it was a creative solution that I was not expecting,
Yeah.
and I was totally fine to run with. It was basically this city is going to get attacked and overrun by snake monsters, and they're going to turn them into more snake monsters, and then they're going to attack more cities. And you guys were like, all right, everyone needs to leave. And they're like, we've got other issues. And you're like, okay, delayed fireball on the windmill, spread fire throughout the city, and we're just going to rain fire from our airship. And everyone's leaving? Yeah, okay, good. They're leaving. Good.
We did exhaust our other options
Yes,
before
yes,
that.
yes.
It wasn't
You
like
did.
we pointed to some peasant on the street like, hey, you guys should probably leave.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think we're good here. Blow up the city.
Well, that's all I can take.
No, I'm not criticizing you guys at all.
It was an extreme action, but
No, it wasn't. We say like, oh, it was an extreme action. That was a war crime. We literally, it's like a war crime. Even if we did save the day, like I can't. Those characters had to be held at a military tribunal at some point. That was like incalculable property damage.
Nobody knew it was you guys.
Holy shit! Who else has an airship?
That didn't matter. There was a fire. They weren't like
Okay, but they saw like an airship bombing their city.
No, there was also a riot going on.
Okay,
at the
but
same time.
they still
Yeah.
probably looked up.
Well, those people who looked up didn't survive. So
And we
good
were like,
job.
we did spend half that campaign passing out business cards with our exact base location. So,
Who did that? That was the building into woods. Yeah, we know exactly where they're at. in
there
the
could have
misty
been any.
forest.
There's literally an airship hovering above the building.
from a very it's admittedly cold, but a very cold, calculated, and utilitarian standpoint, it was the right call.
Yep.
From like an emotional humanitarian, absolutely not. It was terrible, but it's like the city was going to be overrun. There was no way they were standing up to this army.
Nope.
It was going to get burned down. All those people were going to be slaughtered and killed and brought back as snake monsters, bolstering this army to do it again. So it saved countless lives and robbed the army of an entire city's worth of.
Also, for what it's worth, you got half of the city to leave. That was part of it. Half the city left. They agreed. The other half did not. And then once it got lit on fire, it's not like you guys locked the doors. it was like, hey, now it's time to get the hell out of here.
You
Some people
interfered
probably
with
didn't.
my goals.
Yeah.
That
Sorry,
really
I'm
fallen apart if
chaotic
we locked the
neutral.
doors to the skates.
Yes. No.
Oh, right. We're not asshole. We're not evil.
Right.
We're trying to. Oops.
Kevin,
Can,
Kevin, that is
can we go on like,
obviously,
no, that's been on fire for an hour.
that's obviously chaotic neutral.
Yeah, and also when you're throwing fire spells from the airship, it wasn't at people. It was like at buildings to make the fire spread. Again, I'm not saying that everybody got out there alive.
shock and awe. That's a modern day military tactic.
A lot more got out alive than would have if a bunch of snakes came through.
Oh man, that was a good campaign.
We did
a
beat
good
the
time.
snakes.
We did. We won.
We should have done an epilogue where they had
Answer
for
for
that
their-
in some way.
Just a trial, like
You owe us 4 million gold.
we got a statue. All right. Anything else about the Annis Hag?
Oh, there's
we-
the one last aspect. It's hags in general. They're weird magic. It's in their their chapter in Voldos. There's a lot of creative stuff you could do. So it's pretty much saying hags get these weird artifacts and stuff that they could cast spells and other magical abilities through. In terms of making them, it's basically you give them a spell, but it's casted through this object. And I think DM can have a lot of fun with it. Of kind of
Definitely. It's basically like giving them spell scrolls.
Yeah.
Is a good way to put it.
Essentially.
Where they can just have something, it's done in a weird way, where they run over to their cauldron and grab a frog off the counter, throw it in, smoke billows out, and now there's a smoke cloud. I mean, that's a really simple one, but...
Yeah, or there's
or fog cloud.
uncork or like break a vial full of wasps, and they fly out and then stitch the wet hag's wounds closed.
Right. And
That
it's to
was-
cure wounds.
It could cure
Yeah.
wounds.
Really edgy.
Yeah, like crap like that. So it's a way to beef up these encounters by giving them additional spell slots.
And just spells. I mean,
Yeah.
not because as we've talked
Spell-
about
yeah,
before,
yeah, different spells.
Their
Yeah.
actual spells not in a coven are extremely limited.
Yeah.
I mean, the Annis Hag has Disguise Self and Fog Cloud. That's it. That's spellcasting.
That's a real encounter ender right there.
yeah.
Oh, it's foggy and there's a grandma now. Huh.
So yeah, you can give them a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, hey, if you want to make something like really challenging, give them like I like the thing. It's like it looks like a harmless little bead, and like they whip it at someone, and if it hits, it just explodes in the searing light, and it's a disintegrate.
Ooh, that's mean.
Yeah,
That might be a little bit much for challenge rating 6.
no, this is you want to make it a harder challenge.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
need to beef up the hags, give them more health and different stuff, and give them a handful of disintegration beads.
Yeah, and I think it's a handful. Just
Throws the
just
entire handful.
A bag of them.
Your tank got hit by 3 disintegrate spell. Oh,
You just throw them on the ground, and now there's little beads, and the second that you step on them, it's just a disintegrate. So the entire area is difficult terrain, and when you step on it, you disintegrate.
it only turns like a 10-foot chunk of it to add. Oh, wait, no, it's going to be the entire player.
And I don't think that you should ever throw a Annis Hag at a level 6 party if you're trying to have a fun encounter. I think as we've gone through, adding in the weird magic makes it fun, layer actions potentially, and that ups the challenge rating, adding in minions. We're talking about a little bit higher level here, so you can play this thing a bit more aggressive. If you're trying to do, I mean, even level 3s fighting it, they're probably going to die on one crushing hug, to be honest. 96 plus 5 is a lot of damage.
Right.
The base Annis Hag is absolute crap for any encounter. I don't even know how to measure that, but it's like incredibly dangerous to one thing, and then the rest of the party is just going to beat the crap out of it.
Yep.
And that's not how you should be playing it. You should be getting weird with it. You should read this chapter in Volo's Guide to Monsters.
And listen to all 3 parts of our
all 3 parts.
podcast. So don't throw this against a low level party. Don't throw it against a level 6 party. Make it a tough fight against a higher level party. Definitely. Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope. Got nothing else.
I'm just excited for Hags Part 4.
No.
that's it.
This is closing the book on Hags until they release a new book with more Hags, in which case we have to revisit it.
Right.
Obviously. If they have another entire chapter on Hags, I'm going to be amazed.
I doubt it would be that
Yeah.
much. Probably just adding some
stat
more.
block.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
probably something more to kindness that we missed.
Oh, I don't
We're
think
making
so.
a liar of ourselves.
I don't want to say that. This is the last chapter of the Hags, probably. There we go.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Next week on Monsters and Multiclass.
Join us next week as the Bards are back in town. We're going to discuss the Bard Cleric and the Avalar.